Jordan Abshire from the legal recruiting company Lateral Link. Growing up in the same hometown in Louisiana as JW, I don't have very much faith in government, and generally...
It was something he did, or something about the town?
Well, no, it's actually nothing to do with JW or our town. It's more the history of government officials in the state favoring one company over another, and unjust ways. So my question is to David, and I guess it's sort of related to the last one. I'm wondering if you've noticed to this point whether GM or the government has engaged in, I guess, anti-competitive actions that might adversely impact Ford, and I'm wondering what sort of recourse you think you might have if they do.
Well, to be perfectly honest, we have not seen anything. We're, keeping a close eye, or as close an eye as we can, on what those companies do. We haven't seen anything that particularly gives us pause, except for the basic fact that they have access to low-cost capital. They don't have to pay back their debts because they were wiped out in the process. So there is a competitive, obviously just a general competitive disadvantage that comes from going through the process that they went through, which we frankly had no interest in going through, and we believe we're better served by not having gone through it. Certainly our shareholders are. The issue really is, though, how would we know? What would we see that would be evidence to us of things that were going on in the government? Look, I believe the government's acting, the officials are acting in good faith. I believe GM's acting in good faith. But what guides their good faith? What are the proper ends of their investment? I think we need to have not just their own determination of what they think is the best policy, but a real exercise in actually making public policy and law that determines what's going to happen with those companies. And transparency. Transparency is absolutely critical for companies that are owned by the government to be completely transparent about what they're doing, what are their contacts with the government, what are their interactions, sort of a FOIA reading room type approach would be helpful. So there's a lot of kind of watchful diligence on our part to see how that develops.
And I think in that vein, on the banking side, I think we've already seen some accountability issues to shareholders. I think I'm convinced that Secretary Paulson demanded that Ken Lewis violate the federal securities laws, and I think that he did as a result. And I think that goes to accountability. And I think, you saw the SEC come back with, I think, some preferential regulatory treatment in the SEC enforcement settlement. I think Judge Rakoff was right to reject that settlement attempt. I think, that goes to accountability, and I think that goes to transparency in government.
On a smaller note, NCRC has filed a complaint against a subsidiary of AIG, Wilmington Finance. It was a very clear-cut issue of redlining from our perspective. The company would not underwrite loans in the city of Baltimore's row house community, and demographically that community is overwhelmingly African American. At one point, a decade ago, there were some issues with appraisal fraud. Long gone, long gone. Most of the other major lenders, all of them, frankly, do business there. The interesting footnote for this group is that we filed an administrative fair housing complaint to HUD. HUD began to investigate the complaint after negotiation to mediate failed. And in fact, now AIG has been issued a subpoena by the Department of Justice because they refused to collaborate with HUD on the investigation of this really rather modest civil rights complaint. So it raises very interesting questions with regard to the issue we're talking about here. Fair housing is national public policy. You had a government agency trying to investigate a complaint. They said, no, we're not going to turn over underwriting and related documentations about originations. And in fact, here we are. The government, arguably, is in court against a company it holds.
Just another example of the left hand not knowing what the far left hand is doing. While we're down to footnotes, by the way, I should add, David didn't say this, but he did not fly down in his private jet. He was driven down here by the general counsel of GM in a Ford. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank our panel members. Please join me in thanking the panel. Have a great day.